Hi friends, this is wishkotheferret. Thanks for hopping into my little ferret den here. We're keeping it warm here, we're keeping it cozy, and believe me, it is way too early for me. I woke up at 5 a.m. and I have a message for you. So, yesterday I was meditating by a body of water and I had asked Spirit, you know, how do I bring more of my gifts out into the world? How could I allow my gifts to be seen by others? Because the majority of my spirit conversations are through sleep. And I had thought, I was on like one of my little writing kicks yesterday and I thought, oh, like I could write stories for the collective. And allow those stories to resonate with people. But the flash that I got from Spirit was the image of somebody writing something on pen and paper, and they told me to actually write down my dreams. Now, I was a little concerned about it because I haven't remembered my dreams in a few days. But I kept this in mind and I said, okay, I'm going to be receiving a dream that's meant for the collective, tomorrow. And I woke up this morning because I thought about it last night and I was thinking like, oh, okay, don't forget to send me a dream for the collective Spirit. Don't forget, like Spirit doesn't friggin' forget, but how else am I supposed to talk to Spirit from a human experience? If you want something, you ask for it. So I was like, don't forget, send me that dream. And I had a dream that I knew wasn't for me, but my guides are very straightforward, and it's a little tough for me, and it was tough for me to come to terms with it. So as I'm laying in bed wide awake this morning, I was like, do I share this? Like, it's not really my place because I can tell it's not my trauma. Like I've been traumatized in different ways, but not the way that came through in my dream. And they had said that Spirit was informing me that, I didn't have to share this, that it was my gift. And they assured me that it was okay, but I was like, no, I asked for this, so I'm going to follow through. So it was kind of like a roundabout, way of being like, no, I'm going to do it. Like telling Spirit, should I do this? But then going, no, what do you mean I'm not to do it? Of course I'm going to do it. I asked for it. I received it. I'm going to do it. So I kind of answered my own question, which is just how it be sometimes. That's how it happens sometimes. But so I will say that this message is going to be a little bit different. I won't have my tarot and my oracle cards, but instead this is a message that came to me through a dream. And then when I woke up, I had a conversation with Spirit about it, all that I will share with you now, and take it as it resonates. I will say that because I am walking from the perspective of me, who identifies as a woman, you don't have to, Spirit's asking you not to see gender in the message, that it could apply to either or, and then to, whatever, because it is handling, different relationships and traumas and stuff with that. But that being said, I wrote it down so that I wouldn't forget it, and I'm reporting to you first before I even handle the rest of my day, before I get food, before I let out my ferrets or anything like that, just so I can make sure that I have the whole message, that I'm able to convey it. But let me start here. So obviously, trigger warning for those of you who have experienced any type of relationship trauma or sexual trauma. I will spare a lot of the details because some of them I just feel are just too, it's just not relevant to say exactly what was being said. But my dreams are very symbolic, so I will be discussing because I'm kind of like an observer of my dreams too. Like when I'm experiencing the dream, I know what it means as I'm experiencing it. Like I'm analyzing as I'm experiencing it, which is a little weird, but it's almost like I have that knowledge walking through my dream. Like I'm receiving this wisdom throughout. Okay, so So I started off in an apartment building. It was me. I was doing some sort of passion projects of sorts, or I don't know if it was a passion project, but I was kind of making do with what I had. And I had this bike that I got around with. It wasn't much of a bike, but it was a very dusty, rusty, old bike, and I was cleaning it off with a toothbrush. And I'm looking at this bike, and I'm like, there's only about half of it, but I basically had limited resources, and I was trying to take care of the limited resources that I had. And I was outside a few times doing this, which left me like, I was going out there. I was seeing people. I was meeting people. And there was this one neighbor that I had met about twice. And he was an older dude. He apparently worked in construction. So he would often talk about his construction projects, and I was like, oh, I'm working on something now. He probably knows more than me. And I thought, okay, he seems pretty cool. And I didn't really think too much of it. I would like to say that at the beginning of the dream, he felt a little bit off, but it wasn't really something that I paid too much attention to. I was just like, oh, this dude's pretty cool, nice. But one day I had wheeled my bike in, and he was telling me about how he had fixed up his refrigerator and had asked me if I wanted to come see it. And I was like, and I made a step because, even in my dream, I had my people-pleasing ways, I suppose. But I had stepped forward. And it's interesting because I'm not a people-pleaser anymore, but I guess, how I would used to respond, because, the way that I am now, I would not have acted in that dream. So I can tell it was almost like this is regarding an event in the past. But I had come forward, I'd stepped forward, but then I stopped myself because I had a very strong, icky feeling about it. But I wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt and say, okay, well, this dude just has a project. He wants to show me his project. So I said, okay, sure, why not? And as soon as I had stepped foot in his apartment, I knew I had made a mistake. I knew I had messed up because he had shut the door. And there was another person there. I don't know if it was a buddy of his, but it was a neutral observer. It was somebody that was watching the events, but not really caring too much to do anything, or even if they did care, they just did not do anything. So there were other people that were aware that this was going on. But he turns around, and, well, I'm not going to say exactly what he said something that was just very weird and very creepy, and I was too shocked to really respond or do anything. And then he had come up and silenced me and basically pushed me into the bedroom. And there are other implications there, but thankfully in the dream, my guides had showed me this complete black screen. This black screen. I said screen because I had tried to scream once or twice. I tried to scream in different ways in the hopes that someone would hear me. And nobody came. So I heard in the darkness one of my guides come through, because my guides speak to me through these messages and through my dreams. And he had said, one of my guides, he had said, ask him for some clothes. Some fresh clothes. And I was like, so basically being agreeable to get out of a situation, or, trying to get to safety and it was basically the first step in moving on. It was the first step of leaving it behind. But I was so rattled with the event. So the next scene is in my own apartment, or I guess the apartment was more of a bedroom, I guess. And the door was closed, but it was see-through. So everybody that passed could see me in all of my vulnerability. They could see me, and I was very upset. I wanted to be away. I wanted to be alone. I did not want anyone to see me because I was hiding in fear. I did not want to expose myself to other people because I didn't want them to see me. I did not want to risk something like that happening again. So all of the men that had passed my door, basically were looking at me and they were talking shit, basically. I can't remember exactly what they were saying. I don't think it's relevant, and I don't think I wrote it down. But let me see if let me make sure I'm not missing anything and going through. Oh, I did miss something. Okay, so I'm sorry. Let me backtrack here. Okay, so I'm going to start here where I said that I heard a guide say, ask him if you can borrow some clothes. The intent was to leave and to go home, and I'm not sure how I exited, but once I did, there were blue and red lights in the background from like police cars or something. So this might have been relative, but either way, it's symbolic, not necessarily of the fact that it was handled legally, but the fact that it was dealt with in some way and that you won't have to be concerned with something like that from that particular person again because you have been extricated from the situation in some way or like I've been removed from it. So I thought, okay. But a lot of like the police car scene, I'm going to call it because I saw the red and blue. A lot of that scene was kind of blanketed in my memory just because the memory of whatever had happened was so fresh that I don't remember very vividly coming out of it. It almost seems like it was a daze because that traumatic memory was so striking in my mind that it was hard to really process anything else after. So basically, like, I was like winded basically, and like the whole police car scene was just kind of skipped over. Like, at claircognizantly, I was picking up that like it was the situation was done, dealt with, and over with. But so anyway, zooming back to the bedroom and the apartment. So the door was closed, the door was see-through, and everyone that was passing by could see me. There was a neighbor next door, or there was a neighbor down the hall from me that had a kid. And this person, from my understanding in my dream, I've never seen like these people in real life, but the one, the father, he used to be, I guess, he was a friend of mine, but as he was passing, he was saying incredibly awful things through the door as he was seeing me. He and his kid were laughing at me and judging me, and they were just coming across like, and I mean, like, having the full door see-through was like very like overwhelming for me, and I was like, oh my gosh, like that's just too much. So I'm not sure if my guides were responding to me or if this was just a part of the dream or a part of the message, but there was just a strip. So it became just a normal door, but there was a strip where people could look through and see. And I can see that people were actively trying to look through and look at my situation and, basically put me down. There were just a lot of negative energy there putting me down. And I wanted to hide from them. Like, I remember putting my face slowly behind something as I was watching them because, like, I feel like this is where my soul kind of was like removed a little bit. Like, I was too busy being a zombie trying to deal with the trauma that like I was not paying too much attention to that, or I was, but it was almost like I was interpreting everything as negative. And I'll tell you the reason why I feel that way in a little bit. But people were looking and laughing at me, making disgusting comments. And again, it wasn't that memorable. I only remember wanting to hide. But like when I put my head down to hide, the angle, they could see me from like the angle because I guess they had a higher vantage point so they could see me, and they were still laughing and still making comments. So I had moved because like the door was off, like not quite in the corner, but it was off like towards the right side of the wall. So I had moved to the closest corner to like the other side so that they wouldn't see me. So I went to that corner, and I was the most hidden in that corner, and I felt safer there. But I think after a while, again, this was kind of skipped over a little bit, but there was that feeling of, I am tired of hiding. I am tired of being in my room by myself. I'm tired of hiding from the world, and I had chosen to get back on out there. So when I had left the room, I had found my friend group slowly start to, expand. So the one that I felt was making negative comments towards me, the one with the sun, I remember speaking with him, and then there was like a memory, like, and I don't like, I guess I was trying to assure myself that he could be trusted because I had a memory. it was so interesting. I was reviewing a memory in which we had gone to go save his son. It was kind of like a video game-esque scene where we had swords and we were going and fighting these monsters and like on an island in the raging, dark, stormy sea. Because I guess these monsters had kidnapped his son, and we had bonded over like on that journey, and we had been through some shit together, and like we had helped each other, like I had helped him. And when I had finally come out and like I was trying to assure myself by reviewing this memory in my dream, I was trying to like, as I was talking to him, I was also reviewing this memory. But I was also, interestingly enough, like being an observer to all of this and like recognizing, oh, this is a memory. And I'm reviewing this to try to make myself feel safe because I knew this was a safe person to be around. And I had come to the conclusion, like during this dream, as I was reviewing this memory, everything that I've experienced when I was in my apartment buildings, like it was like my own misconception because I was processing my trauma. I was viewing everything in a negative way. Like people weren't laughing at me, people weren't judging me. That was just the way that I was perceiving it at the time because I felt like I just wanted to hide. I didn't trust anyone because of my experiences. So when I'd finally chosen to come out the door and choose to trust, I was actually seeing how, I guess how wrong I was or how clouded my perception was. Because there's obviously a reason I don't believe that our realities are ever really wrong. I believe that sometimes they could be misaligned due to different things in our lives. And I feel like during this dream, that's what it was misaligned. And because of my experiences and because I was trying to like rework some of that trauma, or like I was trying to like process the fact that, oh my God, that happened to me. There was, again, that irrational fear that everyone else was going to do that to me, that everyone was judging me for it, that it was very shameful that this horrible thing had happened to me, and everybody was judging me for it. But once I had come out, yeah, I mentioned it was lonely, it was aggravating. At some point I made a decision to leave my room, and the neighbor was nice when I was interacting with him. He wasn't mean to me at all. It was the byproducts of my trauma that I was receiving in my room. So it wasn't quite the reality. So now that I had left the room, I would be able to experience support. And I remembered the trust. We reviewed the memory. He ended up being a big support after all of this too. This applied to other men in my life. And then like after a while, I had like accumulated, I don't know if accumulated, but there were like 2 other guys in that little friend group. So there were 4 people total, including me. And there were 3 other guys that I was able to grow and bond with and trust after this experience. And they weren't in a romantic way. I feel like I was just able to trust men again in general. Like I feel like I was completely turned off by men completely. And I was able to trust them again. One of my interesting, because sometimes the characters in my dreams, it is my guides giving me messages. So when they do, like the one guy gave me like a thumbs up, like as I was coming out of my room and as I was making my way to the table with, all of these men, and I was like, okay, let's get back out there and like, trust people again. He had given me, like, as I was talking to them and as I made these realizations, he gave me kind of like a thumbs up, and I knew that this wasn't my friend giving me a thumbs up, it was my guide giving me a thumbs up, telling me like the right move was to come out and to be open again and to trust again. And also that I was on the right track in interpreting, because sometimes like they're there and like they talk to me as I'm having these thoughts and as I'm interpreting these messages in these dreams. Like they'll interact with me as I'm conversing with the dream to try to understand it, and they'll go, yep, you got it. Or like they actually told me that at the end, like when I'm like, is that what they meant? And or is that what that meant? And they're like, you got it. And I had to ask a lot of questions, because while there is an emotional part of this that does seem to fit some of my trauma, like I've always been friends with guys and I've never had like a mistrust of men, and I just felt like there were, especially like the sexual trauma, like there was just some things here that really did not fit me. So I had to ask a lot of questions to make sure that this was not my message. But there was another part of the dream that I felt was relevant, that Spirit kind of is guiding me to share. I found myself in the bathtub singing to myself. And this is actually, singing came up in the last message too, and like the Reach for Your Dreams collective message. So for some of y'all, like singing was like a coping mechanism. But it was, either way, if it's not singing, it's a way that you express yourself that you'd use to cope with. But there was like family trauma was referenced when I was singing in the bathtub, but essentially this was how I had coped with a lot of those issues. This is how I had coped. And the more that I sang specific songs, so they're like on the spigot of like the bathtub, there were certain songs that were popping up. And as I was singing them, the songs got harder and harder, and I was getting better at the skill of singing, but I was also having more and more fun as I went along and sang more of these songs. And it was how I expressed myself. It was how I coped in my dream. And that might actually be something that's relevant for some of you, if not the direct singing, some form of expression. Okay. So, awakening from this dream right after, I do have conversations with different spirits, or like different energies coming to me. And just to make sure, and just so I can get my own understanding of it. And again, I wondered about sharing. I woke up with this knowledge, or I woke up with the knowledge this applied to other people. So like I woke up with, oh, this is the collective message. I was actually really, really nervous to share this with the collective. So I was like quite literally just having discussions about that. Like, is this something to share? And I mentioned a lot of this at the beginning, so I'm just going to skip a lot of this. But I was told that it was basically like my fears that were stopping me from sharing this kind of message, because I've never shared my dreams before. But, there's that. But I was visited by a woman, a spirit, who was holding a caged bird. And she had come up to me and she said, "Can I talk to you?" And I had said, yes. Now, I mean, and again, my spirit communication, guys, the spiritual attacks are for like another day, but this was all guided. This is all like, I'm like in a very protected space as I'm having these communications. So trust me, it's relevant. You don't have to worry about me. And we can talk about my spiritual journey and like all of like the spiritual tech stuff another day. And if you're interested in that, definitely leave a comment down below if you want to hear that story. I am working up slowly to revealing my spiritual awakening story, which does have a lot to do with protection and stuff. But anyway, I was visited by a woman holding this caged bird. I did find that it was a dead bird. It was an eagle. And the eagles typically represent, actually, interestingly enough, the eagle was one of, like, the bald eagle specifically, or just an eagle. Spirit actually told me to erase the bald at one point, like, several weeks ago, when I was like, is it an eagle or is it a bald eagle? But it comes to me as a bald eagle because that's just what I think of when I think of eagle, but it's just an eagle. The normal symbolism of an eagle is somebody who is independent, strong-willed, somebody who reclaims their power and moves forward with that independence, with that clarity of their own mind and their own thinking. So when she comes to me asking to talk, and she has holding, first of all, caged bird, which has a symbolism of not feeling free, and you also have like the just feeling like you're not in your own power, I was like, oh, this is that energy. And when I asked her what she needed to say, I said, no, go ahead, share. She like came forward. I allowed her to, but it was like a very heavy energy of despair, depression, sadness. There was so much hopelessness, and it was easy to get lost in this energy and dwell. She might have said a few words, but I don't remember specifically what those words were, because I don't think they were as important as the feeling that came with it. I found that I wanted to be drawn into that energy, that I wanted to kind of dwell and drown in that energy a little bit, and I would stay there if I allowed myself to. But I actually had asked her, no thank you. I had asked her to please step away and stand by, because I wanted to converse with other energies first. I was like, I understand that this is like the energy that was present during this trauma, and that it had invited, it was something, it kind of like, this feeling kind of swept whoever this message is for, that feeling kind of swept you away, and it was almost like it took away your power, it took away your voice, like you felt like a caged bird that could not get out, even though you were a very powerful, magnificent being who has this strong, independent voice. And it's almost like you like allowed this sadness. And I mean, it is totally understandable. Like, this is a very natural human process. It's not like you allowed this, it's your fault. That's not what I'm saying. But this is the energy that was present at the time. But then once processing happens and once it's done, I had asked for other voices. I had asked for other energies to come in. And I had actually gotten this image of the back of a car, the back of a vehicle. Actually, it looked like a Chevy or like a Toyota or something, but like one of those, like, you know, 4-door cars. And I saw the back of it like driving out of my vision, driving off the screen. And I heard the words, "Let it go." And I'm getting the chills as I'm saying that, so I'm not sure. Maybe that's an important message for some of you. And I wish I could elaborate further on it, but it was so incredibly hard to let it go. And like for me, it was incredibly hard for me to let go of that specific image, that specific scene in the dream, just because it was so strong. And this is how we often handle trauma in real life. Like, we have to process, we have to feel our feelings. But oftentimes, because it is so disturbing or because it is so fresh, like it stays fresh in our memory because of how strong it was. So oftentimes that leads to a lot of varying different responses of, you know, pushing it down, of pushing it down and not processing the feelings and not allowing those processing things to happen. For some of us, we just sit in that energy of hiding from the world for too long, and there's like this swallowing of sadness and despair. And letting it go was processing the event through my feelings. It required a certain amount of detachment that I needed in order to move on. I needed to say, this is not my story anymore. And, you know, I can't even say anymore because it wasn't my story, but the fact that I experienced it through a dream was like really jarring. So I noticed this is a very big thing with the mind as well, that when we have something negative in our lives happen, there is a tendency to want to focus on that, to piece it apart, to understand it fully. And even when we understand it, it's almost like we're beating a dead horse with a stick of, you know, trying to, it's pointless. But we find ourselves doing it anyway and fixating on it because this thing happened, and it's almost like we're trying to figure out all the ways in which, you know, how do we prevent this from happening again? How do we not let this happen again? Oh my gosh, I can't believe that happened. Like, there's just so many like reasons to focus on it that we like are not even thinking about making the choice to detach and not turn our attention towards it, especially after we process our feelings. And a lot of times processing, like for me, processing that dream was just getting up and doing one thing at a time and moving my feet, because Spirit actually gave me a little bit of something afterwards when I was just laying in bed and I was like, what do I do with this information? What do I do with it? Sitting and doing nothing was not going to help me process the dream. Sitting was not going to help me process like the feelings that came with it. It was actively getting up and moving about my day that was going to help me move through it. So even if you don't have to, despite popular belief, you don't have to take a magnifying glass to every bit of trauma that you have. Working through it, I think you can work through it for a little bit, but I think there's only so much that you can do. And I don't think that you should expect the world of yourself by piecing it apart, by ripping it apart, because sometimes that's how we perpetuate the trauma and keep it going. Like, that's how we keep the story alive sometimes, is by reviewing it, rehashing it, going over it again and again, wondering what went wrong, what can I do better, blah, blah, blah. Even if you're constructively thinking about it, which can serve you, but it only serves you up to a certain point. Because sometimes you just have to move one foot in front of the other until it gets better, until you see yourself processing it further. Sometimes processing has nothing to do with dealing with the event at all. Sometimes it quite literally is just moving forward, accumulating more memories that are past that trauma point, and being able to view your story in many other lights. Not that particular story, because that story does not define you, but what other stories are there in your life that you can work on building and focusing on, so that does not become your main thing, so you don't allow that thing to become the thing that defines you. Okay? Let me read through this and see if there's anything else. I needed to choose to focus on other things. When I found out that there was nothing left to discover in the scenario, there was nothing left to learn, and I was sinking into despair, I actually told, because I heard the words, like, because there was this despair energy, the girl with the caged bird, she was still there. I was told to tell her, please be gone. And once I did, I'm not gonna lie, it did not feel like a liberating, uplifting, peaceful love feel. Like, I told her to go away, and it was not lingering anymore, because I told her, please keep at bay, please, like, stand by while I review other options, because I was trying to think, like, what other energies are involved in this situation. But then I had told her, you may be gone. Some of you can interpret that in quite literally, like, the spiritual way of, oh, this energy had come by to inform me that this is how it works. And now I was quite literally telling a physical entity to leave. But this is more so Spirit's always telling me, like, regardless of who comes to me or how it comes to me, consider it a lesson. And, like, it's usually applied to my feelings or applied to the scenario at hand. So quite literally just saying goodbye to that feeling, saying goodbye to it, it just felt like it wasn't in my peripheral anymore. The sadness or the despair, when you choose, I'm not going to view it that way anymore, that intention is strong, that intention is clear. Spirit understands that intention, and so does your soul. So having that kind of move away just allowed me to clear the way. Okay, it allowed the way to clear a little bit. So let me read and see if there's anything else. I felt normal once again. It felt normal. It didn't feel like there was that thing looming over me. So I stayed in bed for a while after this because it was 5 a.m. and I kept hearing actually Spirit say, like, she's not going to share it. And maybe that was my own worries, like, of me laying in bed thinking, like, I'm not going to share this if I'm in bed. But that really wasn't my feeling. I just heard she's not going to share it. Like, and I said, well, yes, I am. Like, I was arguing with this. I was like, well, yes, I am. Why do you think I'm not going to? And I heard something along the lines of, like, she's not moving, or, like, she's not getting up, like, to do it. And I said, it's 5 a.m. Like, like, and that seemed to, like, not really matter. But, and that probably speaks to my own feelings of, like, oh, okay, like, message is important to me, and I need to sit up and act on it. Laying in bed is going to push it off. And there was a part of me, I was like, you know what, I don't want to forget this. Like, I want to write this down. But like, there was another part of me like, no, I'm going to remember it when I wake up. That was a pretty big deal. But, and I heard some other things too, relevant to me, but, I'm going to save my own analysis for the dream, like, for me, after I share this message and post it, because I'm actually very hungry right now, so I need to go get, like, a bagel and, like, some eggs or something and let my babies out. But I need to, like, start my morning, but I'm, like, really hungry right now. Like, whew. Usually I eat, like, right when I wake up, and all of a sudden I was just like, oh my gosh, like, if I don't have food in within the first half hour to an hour, I'm like, like, I become an angry monster. So, but yeah, so this is the message. I realized I was bringing my intentions into reality when I had asked, I want to write stories for the collective. The story just didn't come to me the way that I thought, because when I'm a writer, so I used to write, like, stories as a kid, and then, like, oftentimes a lot of the elements of the story would come true in my life. So I was like, oh, that would be really cool to, like, channel something like that. So I think it's manifested differently now that I'm older, and I'm, like, experiencing dreams and such, and, like, that's the way that Spirit communicates messages to me. So if you liked this style, if you liked this flow, definitely like the video. Let me know in the comments down below if this made sense for you. You don't have to share anything you don't feel called to or you don't feel comfortable to, because I know this is a touchy subject for a lot of people, and I'm hoping that I caused more healing than good. And I hope that, I'm sorry that I spoke a lot of the I. It was more of conveying my dream, but essentially just take what resonates with you from the story, because it seemed like it was walking me through a story of trauma that wasn't necessarily mine, and showing what there needs to be done about it, or basically next steps to moving on from it. So sorry, this ended up being longer than I thought it would be. I hope this helped. I hope this helped you in some way. And definitely let me know if this format, I'm not even sure what to call it, because I guess you could say it's a channeled message, but it's like, I don't want to say a dream, analysis or interpretation, because that's not really what it is, but it is a message. So like a dream message, or like, I'll figure it out, y'all, and I'll put it out. If you're seeing this, you obviously see the title, so you know what it is. But that being said, let me know if this format is something that you would enjoy, and I could ask Spirit to send me more messages, because I didn't mind, and maybe I'll get a lot quicker and a lot more concise with these as well, with the more I practice. But yeah, so I love you, I love you, I love you. Next videos I post will probably be Tarot and Oracle, because I do feel called to give some of those messages today. So yeah, look forward to all of the fun things. I love you, I love you, I love you, and I will see you next time, fam. Bye.